right, you ignorant pigs. Put down your crack pipes and your beer bongs. It's time for Angry Tabletop Nerds Night at the Movies. This night's offering from Beyond the Pit is Moana 2, 2024, starring Auli'i, Cravalho, Rose Matafeo as Lodo the Batwoman, and Dwayne Johnson as Maui. This movie is directed by David Darrick, Jason Hand, and Diana Miller. Sorry, it has 3 directors. And I think that is very prevalent right from the get-go. They don't quite know what to do with the ensemble. They don't quite know what to do with the supporting cast. It's kind of like the movie is going in 3 different directions. That's very prevalent from the beginning. I don't know if you're a kind of a careful student of film and stuff like that. It literally is. This is like the perfect symbol for the movie. All right. So just let that kind of be known. And then it was written by Jared Bush and one of the other directors. All right. So I don't make the rules around here. Yes, you 2 kids can pay me to do your own personal movie review, and that's why we are reviewing Moana 2 today. And I just want to shout out to that guy. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this. So let's kind of get into it. The title of the movie is also the name of our protagonist. This movie is about a little girl, well, not a little girl, a young woman named Moana who's probably max 20 years old. All right. Now, is she from Fiji, Tonga, or Samoa? We don't know. As a matter of fact, she is from a fictional island called Matanui, which sounds Polynesian. And it's a lot like Wakanda. It's a very fictional place. And Moana is what you call a wayfinder. A wayfinder is basically an explorer. And when she's on her raft, she can kind of control the currents and flows of the water beneath her. I don't know if she can control the wind. Maybe a little bit of the wind in her sails. But she definitely has the water on her side. Our movie kind of begins when she just returns home after a voyage to another island looking for other islanders. All right? And that's kind of the plot, is to look for more islanders, because if you don't find other islanders, you will eventually die out as a tribe. I don't make the rules. That's just kind of the impression that I got. When she gets home, she has a vision and then beholds a comet in the sky. They set out on a quest to follow this comet, all right, to the island of Matafeo. And this is a cursed island sunk underneath the waves. Now, Moana has to assemble a crew for this voyage. 1 farmer, 1 storyteller, and 1 boat builder. Here's the first strike against this movie. You don't care about any of these people at all. 1 is an autistic boat building girl, and she has a wooden tool that she made out of some, it's kind of like a savage orc just chopping away at a log, basically, and the other one is a storyteller who would pose a good love interest to Moana, but he doesn't, he's not that love interest, actually. He's just sort of there. The other one's a grumpy old man who doesn't want anything to do, can't even swim, but he can grow plants, all right? And he's just kind of, I'm going to say he's second-rate comic relief. But they took him because he can grow food while they're sailing or something like that. All right? So this is a very crummy way to introduce them, because you don't spend enough time with these people to even learn their names. And I didn't even bother to learn their names. I had 0 investment in any of this crew at any given time. They didn't even build them up so you could care about them. If I had to compare this movie to another epic voyage movie, I would compare it to Jason and the Argonauts, all right? That crew has a bunch of epic people on it already. Number 1, you got Jason, the leader. Number 2, you've got Castor of Sparta. You know how he got onto the crew of the Argode by winning several other Greeks in a wrestling match, all right? He was a champion wrestler. And you had Hylas, just to name a few. Now, the screenplay in Jason and the Argonauts makes you aware of who each character is by their deeds, even though they're only most of the Argonauts are just basically ensemble. All right. The deeds of the crew are known. So Castor wins a wrestling match. Hercules, his spot was reserved. None of the other Greeks could beat Hercules. And then noble Hylas comes out, and he outsmarts Hercules by skipping the discus farther than Hercules threw it over the island. All right? So no Greek ever touched it. Hercules bounced a discus right off of the island immediately, and then Hylas, rather than hitting the island with his discus, he skips it and then skips over the island. And then he secures a spot on the crew. But, everybody was happy that Hylas was able to do it. And, they didn't really need him, but they took him along, because might brains be needed where brawn, could fail. And that was kind of the Greek lesson there. But they built it up that way. Again, you have zero emotional investment in the rest of the ensemble cast. So don't even bother to learn their names. Then you come to Maui. Maui is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's character. And he's captured by another demigod, Loto, who is basically a bat lady or something like that. And then you learn a little bit more about the antagonist of this movie. And this is kind of the second strike against this movie. You have no over-the-top Disney villain. All right? And this god, or what this antagonist, takes the shape of a faceless storm that doesn't even have a physical form. No musical number, no poor unfortunate souls. Ursula, probably one of the best Disney villains ever made. And she had a good musical number. So you have no Gaston, no Ursula, no evil stepmother from Cinderella, who was also really good. You just really want to hate that woman. She didn't need the music number. You just look at her biznatch face and you know that she's the bad guy, that she's bad news, That's like Ronnie James Dio, evil woman, Don't dream of women, they'll only bring you down, all right? And then you have some other villains who were kind of bad in the last movie. They are the Kakamura. Basically, coconuts that shoot poison darts. This is nothing original. The Mummy already did this with a bunch of rotted faces that had arms and legs that shot poison darts at people in a grain field, basically. And then the closest thing you really do get to a villain is a giant clam that swallows everyone, and they had to shoot it in the gangula to basically buy themselves some time. They have to throw a poison spear at it. But you get my drift. Now, Moana herself has a superpower. This superpower is basically she controls the winds and the currents, and she can always have a favorable voyage as a wayfinder, okay? And everything about her screams Mary Sue, because nothing is difficult for her. She basically can do anything and do no wrong at the same time, all right? That's kind of the third strike against this movie, She's perfect in every way, basically. Yeah, she got shot by a poison dart too and got all limped out, and they had that comedic moment, but nothing in this movie flows organically. Again, think of this as a guide to your, what do you call it? As a guide to what the directors wanted or something like that. Maybe one of them was a musical director. I don't know, and I don't care. But you already know that she's going to win. So Disney, why don't you just wrap it up? A girl with superpowers helped by a demigod like Maui, who has the power to shapeshift, superhuman strength, a magic hook, can't fail at anything. And that's a huge problem. If your protagonist can't fail at anything, then what's the point of having the movie? What's the point of making a second movie? That's what I would like to know. What is the point of making a second movie if your character is perfect and can't fail at anything? They could have killed Moana at the end of this and just wrapped it up that way. That way you don't have to see a third movie about nothing. But no, they have to make a third movie because Disney, they like to beat a dead horse. And when they're done beating a dead horse, they change from a standard Indiana Jones style whip right to a 2.5 foot chain with a lock on it about this size, just that big, and they continue to beat the carcass until they've milked every ounce of blood and money that they could get from that carcass out. All right. If I have to compare this to some of the older cartoons, and 1989 was a very, very good year for movies. Not only did you get The Little Mermaid, but you also got All Dogs Go to Heaven. And blow for blow, those two movies are very hard to beat. In 1989, you also had Last Crusade and Henry V. So 89 was a really, really strong year for movies. Probably the S tier year for a lot of movies. Very hard to beat 1989. But, in the older cartoons, you have villains, over-the-top villains like Ursula and Carface and everything like that. You have tragedy, and you have a decent protagonist like Charlie the dog. He just wanted to make some money on horse races. All right. And one lapse in judgment led to him losing his life the first time. With a clever trick, he's able to come back to life by stealing his fate clock, and then he does the right thing and basically drowns to save the little girl from drowning herself. And that gives him a second chance at going to heaven rather than hell, because I guess you're not supposed to steal your own fate clock. All right. But if you look at the Little Mermaid, well, Ariel chooses to trade her voice. All right. She's flawed in a way. She wants to get with Eric, but she can't because she doesn't have the right equipment and can't, do the thing that she needs to do with a human. They don't, I guess mermaids reproduce like fish. I don't know. I'm not going to go too far into it, but she trades her voice in a contract with the devil, essentially Ursula, just like Faust. All right. So she has a set time limit. They're using an older story to build up and tell a newer story. She's got X amount of time to get Eric to kiss her. Otherwise, the magic is going to wear off, and she's gonna have to pay the piper and learn a lesson. All right. Unlike Moana, there is no lesson. All right, so, did I mention the songs in this movie are some of the worst kind of popular tripe? I've already mentioned Ursula and Poor Unfortunate Souls. The comedy in this movie is very forced. Nothing's organic. Now, if I compare it to The Little Mermaid, they had that sequence where the chef is singing a song, doing his job, making the dinner, all right? He's making a dinner, and then he notices Sebastian is alive. And they have this whole comedic sequence of him going crazy, trying to kill Sebastian, all right? And even at the end, he couldn't let it go. He comes back after at the initial wedding of Ariel and Eric to try and kill Sebastian again. And that is how the story ends. She marries Eric, and then, they live happily ever after. Whereas you already knew that Moana was going to live happily ever after. They raised the island, the cursed island, from the waves. If she had raised it at the cost of her own life, you would have had a better story. It would have been stronger. But you can't fail if you already have a superpower and you're basically being helped by a god, So, Theseus had an absolute chance of failing. Number one, he could have gotten lost in the labyrinth, all right? No way of getting out. He would have wandered the labyrinth forever and died, all right? But if you give him the power of Hercules, eventually Hercules can punch down all the walls of the labyrinth, bitch slap the Minotaur, and just win. You already know he's going to win. So, and the songs, with the exception of one song in the middle of it, it's basically like find another way. There's always another way or something like that. All of the other songs kind of seem forced. Whereas, like, again, you had a couple of organic musical numbers in All Dogs Go to Heaven, like when they're talking about sharing the pizza with the poor family and everything like that. Very good. Very good. It's even got a chorus and everything. Or Poor Unfortunate Souls. It just doesn't have the same old flow. And Disney, I don't think, is ever going to have that kind of magic again. I mean, granted, if they, one of these days they are going to lose their shirt. If it wasn't for Alien Romulus, if it wasn't for the new Deadpool movie, and if it wasn't for this, I mean, if it wasn't for this movie, they would be operating in the red, not the black. All right. So they've bought themselves some time. But how much time can they continue to buy themselves with offerings like this? I will state that P is for pirate, and what the ever you'll pay to see it anyway, or the boomer grandparents will pay to take their grandparents with it. But this movie is definitely not worth its movie ticket. I wouldn't waste your money. If physical media were a thing, I would wait to get Moana in a bargain bin at the local car wash for $2.99, basically, because that's what this movie is worth. It's about $2.99. Anyway, ATTN gives this movie a 2 skull rating. It's just not worth the movie ticket, and that's about where we're going to leave it on this one. Now, if you want to hire me out to review another movie, you can always do that. Hit me up on the DMs, and then we'll hash out a price on PayPal. That's a one-time donation, or become a patron. But until I see you again, happy Thanksgiving. Keep watching movies, I guess. I mean, just not Disney films. And then stay metal, my friends, and we'll see you in the next one.
I'm more of an expert at exposing the moon. Get out of here, let's go! See if you can find the one crater.